Live on Instagram, live on Facebook. Hello, hello. It's Malcolm Saunders.
Oh, Jody Campbell.
Jody Campbell. Yes, hello, hello. We're going to be talking about, what are we going to talk about here, Jody?
Well, what we're going to be talking about is what you're going to be talking about, and that's
Right.
the 4 real food groups.
Yes.
So, just so people know, I'm trying to look at 2 different cameras. I got my camera over here, and then Malcolm's got his over here, so we're going to try to do this properly.
Yeah.
Okay, getting back to what we're going to talk about. So I'm actually putting you on the spot today.
All
You
right.
have a history of inviting people and going, you know what, we should do an Instagram live together.
Right.
And then the pressure's all on the person that you've invited.
Exactly. I just sit back. So what do you think? And then you just go for it.
You know what, we're not doing that today. So when you invited me, I responded back. I said, yeah, I'll come, but I'm going to interview you.
All right.
And you're going to be on the hot seat.
Okay.
Is that cool?
Yeah, we're fun. Let's have some fun with this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, the topic that I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into was the topic about that 4 real food guide. You
Yeah.
had shared it previously. I think you guys, the Light Cellar was doing an open house. And you had talked about it, and I kind of managed to get about 3 minutes of this live. And then I was so intrigued.
Right.
And then I went back and I found Malcolm didn't really share that much on YouTube or his blog about
It's
it.
true. I almost bring it up almost every class.
I know.
Yeah, but in depth, this is our opportunity to go deep. So
Okay, so where was your first exposure to this 4 real food groups? And I guess we should probably tell people what they are.
what they are. Okay, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is not a concept original to me. It's just an observation that many have made. First, probably I ever heard of it was through Daniel Vitalis, and yeah, once you start looking, you're like, wow, okay, it's true. There really are 4 food groups. Not the ones we learned in school. Canada Food Guide. That's not helpful. No.
Maybe I shouldn't do that, but yeah.
No, that's true, right? So if we look at every single culture around the world throughout time actually consumes foods from these 4 food groups. It's what humans eat. And I'm still waiting, and I put out the challenge, not in an egotistical way of like, oh, the challenge, who can defy these 4 food groups? No, like literally, like if you can think of anything else, like am I missing anything? Like, you know, are there foods outside of these 4 food groups? I've yet to come up with it. Every once in a while, someone's like, "Oh, well, what about water? What about minerals? This and that." And we can get into that.
Right.
That's kind of like the 5th food group that we'll talk about. But the 4, the foundational 4, are plants, animals, bacteria, and fungi.
It is life-changing if you
Isn't it?
follow those 4 food groups.
Yeah, absolutely.
It truly is. Yeah, those are my 4 food groups now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, of course, nature's not in boxes in that sense. Some foods that we consume are actually a combination between different kingdoms. So bacteria and fungi, something like a SCOBY, a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast, like a kombucha SCOBY.
Right.
That's both bacteria and fungi. Or a lichen is a combination between a plant and a fungi, or an algae rather, which would be
Yep.
in the plant kingdom. So
Okay, so what are our 4? Did we...
yeah, plants,
animals,
bacteria,
and fungi.
Yeah, and what I love about this kind of this framework is it won't tell you what to eat, how much to eat, or when to eat. Yeah, it really becomes this intuitive journey, intuitive nutrition. You and I were both deeply immersed in the realm of nutrition, right? Which can get really like myopic and nerdy and heady and yeah. This is I think where our whole industry is going is going to end up in this intuitive eating, right?
I agree.
Following
Completely
our guts
agree.
more than nutrition trends, but frameworks, guidelines are very helpful, and this one is, right? Put that in the context of anyone. I mean, if you'd ask me as when you're in grade 2, when you first learn about these 4 food groups, Canada Food Guide version, right? I would have gone, okay, all right. So I eat, bread. So there's my grains and, fruits and vegetables and, this and that. Not very diverse, but I had that in there. I ate, chicken breasts and pork sausages and this and that and milk and eggs and okay, so I got that, check.
Yes.
Bacteria. Does orange cheese and strawberry yops count?
For many people, it
Yeah.
does. That's their starting point. But one thing, I don't know if you want to draw that comparison, sometimes people feel there's that deprivation. If
Right.
maybe they've developed that they have a food sensitivity or an allergy to dairy or to grains, and then they look at the
Right.
Canadian food guide and go, oh,
Yeah.
I've eliminated half of the food groups.
Right.
Where they get stuck on this little graph.
Yeah.
Whereas if you kind of go back to these 4 real food groups, you realize there's a whole other world of food out there that your body needs to be exposed to in order to stay healthy and to stay really vibrant. So if you have an allergy to, some certain foods, maybe it's time to rethink at how you actually look about how you're going to create your meals and what you're going to put into the body as an option. So that's why I really, really like this four food group one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, each kingdom has such a massive diversity, and like you say, our kind of conventional diet, industrial foods with bacterial, that would be any fermented food, right? Okay. And in this case, with the bacteria-rich foods, you're going to consume living bacteria. You want to consume living bacteria, so that would be, raw, live cultured, unpasteurized sauerkraut, as an example, or lacto-fermented pickles, this kind of thing, and could be things like tempeh, right? And so the difference between those two different types of bacteria, but the sauerkraut and the pickles are a live culture. Things like kefir, yogurt, you're getting that live culture in to become part of your microbiome, to help digest other foods that are in transit through your body at the meal, that kind of a thing.
Right.
Yeah. And then some ferments, bacteria foods, you're going to actually consume cooked, in the case of tempeh, or in the case of sourdough bread, right? So not everything you're going to consume from the bacterial kingdom is live, and that's okay. Because it's done its job, its role in terms of helping you digest those other foods, other plant foods, other animal foods.
Right.
You mentioned the case of dairy. How many people do you know, right, that have a dairy sensitivity or an outright dairy allergy? And a lot of people who have that, I'm not suggesting in any way that people need to eat dairy or should eat dairy, but very oftentimes if they kind of consume fermented dairy,
it's a totally different experience, right?
Yeah, be it yogurt or be it cheese. Oh, I can't drink milk, but I love cheese, works for me, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's that kind of, because the bacteria have pre-digested it, made it that much more available for our body.
And it also speaks to that the foods that we're consuming, if you were to follow the Canadian Food Guide, aren't really in the form or the state that they were when that guide first originally had come out. They're completely different. So you can't compare, you compare the category, but you can't compare the quality of those foods as to what you're consuming now. So that's a difference.
No, for sure.
My other question for you is, so when we talk about the fungi piece of it, people are like, are you serious?
Right? Mushrooms? What?
Yeah, mushrooms. So one common one that I've even got my kids hooked on is making an elixir. That's a whole other topic that Malcolm is very proficient in. Is adding actually in that form kind of these ground up, kind of the dried versions of these mushrooms into a hot chocolate with the chocolate.
Yeah.
Like, come on. It tastes amazing. And you have just completely elevated and upgraded that whole experience with it tasting good. So what are some other things that you could do from a fungi point of view?
Yeah, absolutely. And let's kind of get our bearings around the fungi kingdom, right? So we're talking all the way from single cell yeast to these kind of what are called the large noble polypores, things like reishi mushroom, which you're talking about with the medicinal mushrooms, and everything in between. Because most people, they think either white button mushrooms or magic mushrooms, right? Like that's the first two like that you
I
get.
can say I've only experienced one of them.
And we won't ask which one.
Malcolm. Yeah. Everybody would know which one it would be the white button.
Are you serious? You've never tried white button mushrooms?
Every day.
Yeah,
it's my go-to for the weekend.
Yeah. So, and the other thing we don't realize is that humans have been utilizing the fungi kingdom both as food and medicine for long time.
Right.
There's a famous case of this man, Otzi the Iceman, who's one of the most well-preserved human specimens. That he was basically like frozen in ice and uncovered, and we've been able to study exactly, what he had on him. And he had very limited possessions, not like us in our modern day and our like backpacks full of stuff and our cars and this and that. Like,
right.
He was on the move, right? Hunter-gatherer. He had 3 different species of mushrooms on his person when he died. Right?
Really?
Like that's how important fungi are to us. And another perspective is, most pharmaceuticals actually have their roots in the fungi kingdom as well. Michael Pollan, famous New York Times food writer, written a number of books. He says people say dog is man's best friend. says, I disagree. I think it's Saccharomyces cerevisiae. This is the yeast that, leavens our bread and ferments our beer. That, I'm sure, is man's best friend.
Yeah, which is true when you get a different perspective on things, right?
Yeah.
My dogs, I don't know. One of them's my best friend.
Right.
Okay, so the fungi piece. Anything else? Add to that. Anything else missing?
There's a huge spectrum. So I think what you're referring to are these medicinal mushrooms, right?
Right.
And which a lot of people, fungi like candida, that kind of thing. They're kind of at the top of the food chain when it comes to the fungal kingdom. So they themselves need to protect themselves against lower forms of yeast and fungi and bacteria.
Okay.
So they've developed, just like plants do, develop their own chemistry against those types of things. So by consuming them, that's partly how they work, is they have antiviral, antifungal, antibacterial compounds, within their own makeup, but also they have long chain sugars that help feed the immune system. This term, the polysaccharides, like beta-glucans.
Yeah.
So it's a great way to utilize fungi as this ally to help kind of build our immune system.
Yeah, I noticed that was two pieces, was adding in the bacteria piece, and then now digging a lot deeper into this fungi piece, and you definitely notice a difference, but you have to stay consistent with any kind of these things that you add in.
Right.
You want to be consistent with them. Now, the other piece that we talked about was the animal.
Right. Yeah.
Let's dive a little bit deeper into that, because I'm going to put this out there. A lot of people think that becoming a vegan is the ultimate pinnacle of health. Like, people strive for it because it has to be so difficult to attain. It must be the right thing.
Yeah. I was there. I was vegetarian almost 15 years, and within that span of time, I was a vegan. I was a raw vegan for several years, and I was hardcore, like super hardcore. Like, your shirt says mostly microbes. I'd have one that would say milk is murder.
Hey, maybe you should get those.
No. I'm done being a fanatic.
I'm kidding.
I'm done being a fanatic. Like, really, I claim to be very compassionate, but I was anything but compassionate when it came to anyone that had differing views, especially around diet, than me. And I get it. Like, I've been there. It's a very kind of noble idea and aspiration to non-harming. I'm only going to eat plants. Going to be a vegetarian, be a vegan. I've seen it. I've been in this industry for more than 20 years, and I've seen that it just does not work.
And I'm going to make that same point. I haven't personally met somebody who has been on a vegan path. I've seen people who've done it for a short period of time. Just because they needed a healing window, and it did a lot of good. But I have never actually personally met in person somebody who's done it for a long period of time that doesn't have a whole host of underlying issues, which is unfortunate. But it's not the pinnacle. So you got to eat to what feels good for you, and it both goes back to that intuitive eating. And if you feel that sometimes that you're feel confined to the Canadian Food Guide, don't. Don't. There is a whole other world of food that is out there, and this is why I wanted to bring that up with you today. And I have a funny story about trying to become a label of a food group.
Right.
I tried to eat just a purely raw diet.
Right.
You know how long that lasted for?
How long?
2 days.
Oh, I went 2 years. More than
2
2
days.
years. Yeah.
And I found that just totally was not realistic living in Calgary and being cold. So I have no idea how you did it.
Well, I lived in Arizona.
I couldn't even do it for
about
2 days.
A year and a half of that. 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the most I've ever experimented with actually being that precise in following something.
Yeah.
And I just didn't like it.
And I think we should clarify. I mean, I think, diets have their place.
They do.
As you mentioned, right? If someone's going through kind of a healing journey, or if you're totally, completely lost, like, what do I do? There are some tried and true diets that can work for a time, to follow.
Where they need that healing window.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they kind of find their path afterwards once the body's had an opportunity to kind of catch its breath.
Yeah, but if you find yourself religiously, dogmatically following a diet,
life isn't as fun.
Yeah, or like your self-identity becomes revolving around a diet, then that's a bit of a red flag. And I learned that in hindsight, so I can say that now. But so coming back to that idea of animal foods, and you mentioned it too in this conversation, it really comes down to quality. right? And
100%.
it's not a debate of plants versus animals. Mm-hmm. It's a debate of the source. So whether it comes down to health, environmental reasons, all the reasons that someone might go plant-based, it really comes down to source. And the biggest kind of wrong turn we took with our food system was the industrialization of it.
Absolutely.
Granted, there are benefits. We have access to, any food we want from around the world, anytime, 365, 24/7. It's amazing. And in the absolute abundance of food, we have a huge, huge, huge volume of food. Unfortunately, a lot of it's very poor quality, both animal food and plant food. And so it's about shifting that. And there's this whole relocalization of our food system.
Yeah. I know one thing that I had took when I watched that one live that you were doing during the open house about this particular topic of those 4 specific kind of food groups. And I've done this with clients before in the office. And we've just taken a sheet of paper and actually kind of put them there.
Right.
And I said, so what from your diet currently could we put onto these, kind of in these groups, just to kind of get you a feel as to where they would fall in. And we really found that some of these other bacterial pieces and the fungi pieces, they didn't have anything to add.
Right.
Into those kind of squares, but it really kind of showed, it kind of flipped the perception of, oh, now there's all this deprivation and I can't eat this and I shouldn't be doing that, where you really change that conversation and go, look, now look what you actually get to go and discover and experiment and to add in. Then the whole mood, everything changes because now it becomes food is exciting. Food is now going to start working for me instead of against me.
And it's a journey of exploration. Okay, within the bacterial kingdom, there are literally thousands of options, right? Just start picking 1 or 2 and try and get them in a week. You know? It's not like we need to eat these things, everything every day. I mean, you might disagree, like bacteria, it's pretty foundational. Try and get that in every day, right?
Yeah, that's one thing I do every day.
Yeah. But if someone's just starting, okay, within a week,
and that's exactly it.
Have this frame of reference of okay, did I eat, any form of fungi or mushrooms this week or bacteria?
Yeah, and it's really just kind of being more exposed, and the light cellar will definitely expose you to all that whole fungi and that bacteria piece,
that's
for
one of
sure.
the reasons why I started Light Cellar, honestly, was going into the average health grocery store, even health food store, the selection, the quality just wasn't there. Knowing what our traditional diets have existed, and the diversity and the quality that they've had.
Right.
It's just not there. So.
Yeah. So even for the Light Cellar, people who have never maybe even come here, if you don't live here in the city of Calgary, I know you can order a few things online. I know the selection is a bit limited.
Yeah.
But if you've ever come into the store and maybe you're watching this video and you kind of go, oh my goodness, I'm coming to the Light Cellar for bacteria and fungi. I can tell you people will know exactly what you're talking about.
Right, yeah.
And they will take you to all the different places in the store as to where you would find and where to try. It's a really knowledgeable group of people that you have here that can help people navigate it. I know when you first, I got to tell this story, when you first opened the Light Cellar, it was in the old location, and before you even renovated. So I think I'm going back 10 years.
Yeah, 9 years, yeah.
And somebody said, you got to go check out this store. So I'm I'm totally excited. I go check out this store, and there's some shelves, and I did not recognize one single thing on any of the shelves except for something that was dried.
Right.
It was a dried fruit that I knew.
Right, yeah.
And I felt a little overwhelmed because I didn't really know what was offered or the value.
Right.
And then there was this little table with this cloth over it. I'm like, wow, this is professional. What are these guys doing here? And then slowly but surely started reading some books, watching things, and then realized, oh my goodness, I have been missing out. And it was really having that experience and being exposed to these different things that I realized I actually needed to add more in to my diet to start to feel good and better and more energized. So I am totally thankful to the Light Cellar, and then how you guys have expanded your selection of everything. It is really tremendous. It is really a unique place to be able to come and learn and experience. So I just got to put that plug in there. And no, I'm not paid by the Light Cellar. I need to clarify that because I share so many things on social media. Somebody asked me that, are you a paid?
Right.
No, Malcolm.
Paid ambassador? No.
Malcolm doesn't pay me anything. I just really like the products and coming here.
Oh,
and I
well,
really like Malcolm too.
Yeah, well, thanks. And it's interesting you mentioned that because we sure do represent, fungi, bacteria. The one we probably don't represent enough is the animal kingdom. We have a couple of items.
So you say goats are on the way, maybe in the back there, like a little petting zoo?
Like we have ghee, we've got some colostrum, we've got some whey, we have cod liver oil. But yeah, the other three kingdoms are proportionally, far more represented, including plants, right? So one of the things I like to recommend, as you get in and start expanding your world and options in the plant kingdom, as we want to expand in all of those, is this one idea of eating the rainbow, right? So eating a full spectrum of different colors of foods. And then the other one is to actually get into the world of herbs.
Yes.
Yeah, which I know, both you and I, having studied nutrition, I know for me, when I first got exposed to the world of herbs, totally felt intimidated, right? It was just like overwhelmed, right? Like just gotten out of nutrition school, like I don't need another degree, like, friends that had gone down that path to become herbalists.
Yeah.
And it was a mentor of mine. He's like, Malcolm, it's like, you don't need to be a herbalist. You need to be your own herbalist.
Yep.
And it was Blaine and Druzek that he says, even the professionals, he's like, what do we call it? We call it a practice, herbal practice. You're practicing. You're just practicing herbal medicine. And if you want to practice on other people, you better know your stuff. But you can practice on yourself.
That's a good point too. Where else are you going to learn this sort of information?
Yeah.
I didn't learn it in elementary school. I didn't learn it in high school. Even some of the nutrition training and background was very high level. Like you really have to gear off and become specialized to kind of learn a lot of these things.
Yeah.
But David Wolfe made a good point.
Yeah.
You don't need to be the expert in order to benefit from them. You just need to eat and drink them.
Yeah, exactly.
Boom. I don't need to be an expert in everything. I just need to consume them.
And this is the reality, like culturally, a lot of that wisdom would have been there for us. We would have learned it from our mothers and our grandmothers and, so on and so forth. And now it's like, we got the Canada Food Guide.
Oh boy. I always have that discussion with people in the Canada Food Guide.
Right.
Do I follow that? No, I don't.
I'm glad I don't have that discussion. It's just so far off my table. You're a little bit more front lines. Yeah,
and that's exactly it. But this is why I really wanted to have this discussion, and hopefully this video will be somewhere to refer people to it. That it goes beyond that Canadian Food Guide, and it really does go beyond. And sometimes you got to get a little uncomfortable with some of those foods, and you do have to try them to get exposure to them.
Yeah, and have fun.
But the benefits are there if you're willing to take the risk.
Absolutely, and something like bacteria, right? It's so delicious, right? That whole kingdom. Think of all the wonderful, great fermented foods of the world. They are like they're like the choice top culinary foods. Sometimes an acquired taste, like natto was definitely an acquired taste for me, but I was committed. I knew enough about the nutritional benefits, like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to love this stuff. And then all of a sudden, it must have took like 10 or 12 times. I don't know, like more than just thinking about it. Like actually like open the jar, like smell it, like, okay, try a bite, like it was like the 12th time. It was like there was a light bulb switch that went, oh my gosh, I love this. And I couldn't stop thinking about it.
I'm like that with sauerkraut. The smell sometimes is off-putting.
Right.
And then my kids come home from school, they're like, oh, she was putting her sauerkraut into jars because the whole house now smells like sauerkraut.
Yeah.
But you almost get what real food tastes like on the tongue. And it's almost a little bit addicting because you know what you're putting in actually feeds and you feel good. So that's why you're just drawn to keep consuming it.
Yeah.
So.
And our palates have been kind of narrowed from our kind of modern industrialized diet. So.
Isn't that true?
As parents now, we have that opportunity to be able to broaden our children or grandchildren's palates by introducing this broad range of foods. Like even the introduction of sour. Studies have shown that if you feed that to your kids, there's going to be less of a craving and that reliance and seeking out the sweet and the sugary flavors. Bitter, there's another one, right? Bitter medicine. How many of us actually have that flavor in our diet? But we know how key and amazing it is.
Yeah, it is. It's true. So don't get stuck on the traditional food guide. Start experimenting with this particular food guide, and you will notice. You will notice a difference. You cannot. That's the amazing part. So have I put you on the spot enough? Have I drilled you enough?
Oh, it's fun. It was fun.
It's good?
Yeah, I had a good time. So we've been talking about plants, animals, bacteria, and fungi. The 4 original natural food groups, literally, that every culture around the world consumes food from, except our standard American, modern diet, the industrialized diet. So, but that is, as a result, the only reliably bad diet. Michael Pollan says, hey, if you would like to have any disease of our modern times, just adopt that diet and you've got a pretty good chance. So, yeah, my name is Malcolm Saunders. This is Jody. We've been having a good conversation, helping you, hopefully, on your path to kind of break out of that, expand your choices, expand your repertoire, and it's a good, fun journey.
Okay, well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you letting me put you in the hot spot today.
That was fun.
Turning the tables a little bit. So that was really good. Thanks everybody who tuned in. And if you have questions, well, you guys know how to reach out and get those answered.
Yeah, right on.
Okay, bye for now.